Prakash is kind of saying that we need a separate ministry for climate change because it has been cross-cutting issues from urbanization, from water, from everywhere, and just being part of a tail end of a MOEF and then CC doesn't make sense. So you need a separate ministry as of now. That's his point. I'm right, that's what you're saying? Very quickly, Roxy, you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And we are in dire need of that probably focus on both. So right now, some part of the research and of climate change.
That, but you agree with that? You agree with that point? You agree with this point?
Okay, I agree. You're not letting me explain, right? Okay.
Okay. No, I'm coming to that explanation later. Just say, Dr. Chandra Singh, just say agree or disagree or maybe or something, whatever.
I am on the fence. I'm not sure because we haven't seen that model. So I don't know if it will work or not.
You're on the fence. Okay, fine. Aditi?
I do think there needs to be a separate ministry, but we also know that having a separate ministry often hasn't solved our issues. It has just one more, you know.
Yeah,
so yeah, maybe perhaps with Chandni on the,
I'm scared that having a separate ministry will mean that climate change will become part of that ministry and not rural development, not urban. That's my fear. And that's why I'm on the fence.
So let me just explain this architecture. Sure. See, what I'm saying is that you need to have ministry or no ministry or whatever you want to say. But some people who are responsible and accountable. See, Modi has gone and said, okay, by 2070 we will be net zero. But where is the calculation of who's going to go net zero? You just type and just check it out. Any of the ministry who's accountable of making India net zero by 2070, you will not find anybody. So what I'm saying is that you need to have a body who is directly responsible and talking to PMO and coordinate with all other ministries because it is hitting all the ministries. That's what I'm saying. Having one retired person manning that backyard desk will not solve the problem. It's a huge problem.
I completely agree with that somebody, a group, because there are so many cross-cutting horizontal and vertical data, horizontal and vertical inputs. So very important. So I have heard, Sanjay, what's your take on that?
Well, I think climate change need to be represented beyond international negotiations within a country. So far, the terms of reference of Ministry of Environment is to represent India in international negotiations. I think now it's also time to implement agenda within country in all sectoral ministry. As of now, this role is for Prime Minister Council on Climate Change, which meets very regularly. We need certainly a empowered committee who can facilitate implementation, and it needs to be in rural ministry, rural development, MNRE, and all those things. So if Ministry of Climate Change can focus on implementing within country as well as representing outside, I think that would make a lot of sense. And will speed up the climate action.
Exactly.
Just one point, Jayanta. Just one point, Sanjay. I just want to correct you. The PM Ministry of Climate Change has not been for last 7 years.
Okay? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
It's a body which has no it has no space. So I am not taking that point. Sorry for this.
No, Anjal, you are absolutely, that's what I'm saying. So there is a Prime Minister Council which is supposed to do this work, which is very busy. They hardly meet. That is why we need a institution that can play that terms of reference. It's like a secretariat to PMO, which is working 24/7, and they can come and meet.
We are quite kind of the history of it. When there's a committee on authority on Ganga, they never met. I think they met once in 3 years. So yes, Roxy.
Well, we also need an assessment. We need, like, UK and all the countries have assessment, regular climate change assessment.
National assessments.
So that's where I'm going to reach, Aditi. So that assessment. Okay. Basically, I am part of a climate change center.
That's one by one.
I am part of a climate change center which did an assessment. But what is lacking there? This was done under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, and only focused on the physical basis. Okay. And even there, not on the impacts. Yeah. So some part of the climate change part, especially where we need that scientific rigor and that scientific input basis of how the climate change is happening over India, and how you can work over that, how you can assess it, how you can quantify some of the things. So all that part is under another ministry. It's the Ministry of Earth Science that is dealing with it. But this ministry doesn't deal. So, and MOEF and CC, they go on a different level. So the NDCs, if you look at the NDCs, you will see that lack of scientific rigor. How are we reaching on particular quantified values on how we will tackle climate change for the country, how we will adapt? So all these quantifications are again coming out without that these departments or ministries. So we need a focused climate change. You can call it whatever, action council or group or whatever, or a interdepartmental connection between these ministries or that can also work out, but that doesn't happen. Interdepartmental connection between these.
In fact, a lot of the mitigation is under MNRE. So a lot of the renewable energy and all of that. So I do think that there is a need for better. I mean, a lot of the mitigation, a lot of the mitigation is under MNRE. So a lot of the renewable energy and all of that. So I do think that there is a need for better. I mean, an adaptation is practically all the ministries. There is not one single ministry that hasn't got to deal with adaptation.
But there should have been some linkages, very clear-cut linkages and direction. As of now, it doesn't. And also, I really would like to flag up another important point in this implementation, because now it boils down to implementation. No point in discussing the threats. We are now all understanding the threats are huge. Now all boils down to implementation. What about the states? Where are the states in the whole discourse, Sanjay? The states are not anywhere. I'm saying you that many years back, the state action plan on climate change was framed. All the states were asked to frame their respective climate action plan, and they have made huge budgets. I know for West Bengal, 36,000 crores, even a decade back. All the states submitted their action plan to Central Pollution Control Board, MOFCC. They cleared or not cleared, whatever, we don't know. Nothing happened on ground. So can India get that kind of a huge target, what they're putting themselves in, without taking the states into confidence? Is there a single meeting on states or with the states on climate change in the recent time, Sanjay? Well, without states, can you do it?
Yeah, it's more top down. For example, when India announced pre-2020
top down without filter. Top down without filter, nothing going down.
In 2007-8, before Copenhagen, when India announced pre-2020 targets for India under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, that's when, once that was announced, then National Action Plan was prepared. And then after that, states were asked to prepare state action plan. I was part of some state action plan preparation also. I remember the impression among states was, oh, let's prepare a budget and central government will give us this money. Which didn't happen. So they threw this SAPCC on desk and said, let's not look at it. They started looking at it after some time because of increased impact and climate change become a very major issue. And now state action plans are being revised to align with 2015 NDC announced by India. State action plan has not yet been revised in line with Net Zero 2070, which has been announced in November by Prime Minister Modi. So another revision will happen. So unfortunately, the decentralized process of planning is behind the centralized political announcement.
And decentralized state of planning means that you forget about the decentralized process of implementation.
Yeah.
So if the planning is not there in the state level, how they can possibly implement?
You announce a cake and then you cut the pieces in the states.
Exactly. Fine. So let's very quickly, because we are coming to the end, can extend it for 5 minutes because there's a very extremely important discussion going on. Really extremely important discussion. Dr. Prakash, you are trying to say something, Dr. Prakash?
Yeah, I was just trying to talk about the state action plan. Now, most of the state action plan, if you see, and then the way it was being prepared, I've been part of some of them things as observers and also as people who I know have worked on these things. They are extremely top-down approaches. There is not much of a work which is going on from the district, for example. And then Roxy has been talking about district level planning, and I'm totally in support of that. It's not only about state action plan, but district action plan was needed. And that's why I'm saying the architecture of service delivery is totally flawed in India because it doesn't align anywhere.
What about the other countries in South Asia? You understand?
Yeah, so Pakistan has a Ministry of Climate Change.
Delta Action Plan.
Yes, Pakistan has a Ministry of Climate Change. Nepal has a council which directly, and it's not now, it's 2009 they have actually created a council. Yes. See, I mean, there is a fund and all these things are always problem, but institutional infrastructure is there. Bangladesh also has a separate, in fact, they have a separate fund on climate change, which puts in money for climate change adaptation. So there are different countries do have different types of things, and India being one of the largest economies in this region should actually show the way, should show that how it is possible to do it.
No doubt.
I just want to quickly comment on the state action plans on climate change, just to say, if you look at the documents, and I've done a detailed assessment of each state action plan in the country, in our country, and you see it's a failure of imagination. There is no sense of bringing together different sectors to do something about adaptation. You have one separate section on the physical science, which is also very outdated. If you look at the stuff, it's actually appalling, because you have such good scientists in India who can do this stuff, but it's outdated. Then you come to the mitigation, the adaptation bit, which is totally separate. There we see whatever measures that the states do mention in their SAPCCs, they're all incremental adaptation. So you've got a little bit here, you've got a tweak there, one scheme here, one project there.
Right.
IPCC has been going on saying we need space for transformational adaptation, all sectors coming together and doing something. And third, mitigation is kept separate completely, which only reduces to energy and solar energy or wind in some states. So this integration that we've been talking about in the IPCC...
That actually...
Jayanta, half of these plans are developed by one agency sitting in Delhi. Okay, so let's just call a spade and tell them that where the problem lies. Problem doesn't lie in not having the plan. Problem lies with people who are mainly making those plans also. Half of them actually are done by one agency sitting in Delhi, and they take the entire consultancy for that one, and that's the major problem. There's no bottom up, there is no innovation, and Chandni is right. Absolutely. In the paper that she has written is extremely important.
I'm just kind of thinking loudly the point that you meant when kind of referred or flagged off about the climate ministry. May not be some other form, a climate ministry. May that also be required at the state level, because
exactly the state arm has to be there.
Dr. Singh mentioned about the status of state action plan. That I know in West Bengal, some people are asked, you write mountain, you write river, you write city. So they are like an essay. They like an essay, put up some data, say just like an essay, and they have been put it to the secretary. Secretary took from all of them, got it printed, and that's the report. So that exactly is happening.
And this was the moment for revision. So we had a very good window of opportunity, because we were asked to revise the state action plans, and again we are seeing the same mistake.
Opportunity. Aditi, your take on that?
My take in that is really like, as far as adaptation, but also mitigation is concerned, decentralization is the core. As Dr. Salimul Haq keeps saying, that adaptation has to be locally led. So I would think that why not the panchayats? I mean, why are we not talking of empowering the panchayats to do?
Do they have the capacity, Aditi? Do you think the Sundarban Panchayat have the capacity to think about the adaptation plan? Do they being handholded by the government? They are not.
Yes, so that's exactly where we need to invest all our money in building those capacities at the local level, because they are the ones who are facing the impacts. They understand it much better than any of us, even us who research on it. I mean, lived experience is entirely different. So I have my own experience of working with the panchayats has been that they understand way more than we are wanting to give them credit for. The main problem is really of finance. The real problem is really of this hand-holding that needs to be done, to be said that, yes, you are empowered to do this. And here I find Nepal's recent constitution is very forward-looking in terms of the huge amount of responsibility it gives to the lowest tier of the government. I mean, in some ways, their panchayats, their village councils are even powerful than their states. So I think we need to come back to this more decentralized decision making. This is what the IPCC report is also saying, that the decisions have to be much more decentralized with finance. It's not the total volume of finance alone, but the finance isn't reaching those who need it most. So it's really comes down to polycentric governance, decentralization are some of the important things.
Let me ask first Sanjay and then Roxy, is that adaptation, just now Aditi mentioned this point that you have to do the adaptation, you have to take the bottom up, you have to take the people in the confidence, know from them that what exactly is the scenario. In this report, all the three authors are there. There's been mention about maladaptation. There's also mention about the soft limit, hard limit of adaptation. So clearly, even where the adaptation is happening, it may not be happening the way it should have been. So I flagged on this question, Roxy and Sanjay, and then quickly, and then we'll try to wind up quickly. Roxy.
Oh, it's on to me.
He says, yo.
Okay.
So you feel that, because you mentioned about this district-wise thing, so I just would like to kind of build up on that.
Definitely. So Aditi talked about ways of adaptation, and probably indigenous knowledge also can be used for it. And also I agree totally with it, because the way the extremes manifest and the way the impacts are, though climate change is global, the impacts are always local. So the adaptation measures also need to be local. It might be based on how the topography of the region is, or the climate of the region is. So the way the extremes manifest, where the sea level rise is, or the coastal flooding is, or the extreme rains are, or the way how the landslides occur in some regions of Western Ghats or Uttarakhand, it's all at a very micro level. It's totally dependent on that location. So only those panchayats would know about it. We need a micro level mapping first, assessment first, to know that, and then based on that, we need that climate change action plan at the panchayat level. And also, as a state, there might be a totally different vision. The state level impacts might be focused on cities. For example, Maharashtra, it might be for Mumbai or some other cities like Pune. But you saw, like Cyclone Tote went through some of the southern towns, small coastal towns, which have no ways of adapting. The people also have no ways of adapting. They don't have they have hit the soft limits of adaptation, where they cannot adapt by themselves, but they need external help through financial support or governance. So, but if we have panchayat level, if we can work on a panchayat level, there are multiple ways of collective action, from citizens to schools to local administration. There are multiple ways on how they can work together, how they can monitor this. In fact, I have positive stories of where I'm working with citizen science networks and schools, where they're monitoring rainwater, the rainfall for every day using rain gauges. You can just prepare it with 1,000 rupees or less than that. And that can help them in monitoring the condition and also give alerts. So I have seen in high ranges of Western Ghats, they monitor how much rain it is, and within 2-3 hours, they can tell how much of river water can rise.
Great. Roxy, coming back, we'll just have a quick last round, but Sanjay, I'm reminded of hearing Roxy about the DDP, the draft development plans that the kind of panchayat worked a few years back. So why can't we have a DDP for the climate change?
We do, and we can South Asia, UNICEF and EFICOR, we have been working on it. There's a District Climate Resilient Plan, DCRPs. And then there is also a GP, Gram Panchayat Development Plan, which is a process in every state. Every Gram Panchayat is supposed to prepare a 1-year GPDPs. And we have been working on in Madhya Pradesh to prepare such GPDPs with climate lens on it. So I mean, this is an opportunity, and these GPDPs are revised every year.
Everything. But Sanjay, unless this comes as a government policy, from everything else is coming top down, but this policy has to come top down, that there should be district level, panchayat level planning, which should integrate with the overall panchayat 5 years planning or whatever. So unless that comes from the top, and there's a coordination both at the district level, state level, and the kind of government level, which actually reflected what Anjal was talking about the ministry. I think what he wants to say actually is that you need that coordination at the top level. So unless that happens,
and finance, and let's not forget finance.
Just hearing Sanjay.
I think
just take Sanjay.
I'm quoting example of Madhya Pradesh again, Jayanta, and this is smart policy making. There was a court decision to prepare district plans, 52 district plans in all districts in Madhya Pradesh, and then EPCO, the nodal agency, decided no, we will also add climate plans to it, and that's when they prepared the guidelines. So this is how you need to convert such kind of opportunities integrating climate change.
Great. I'll come to Aditi here, and I'll just have a 1 minute to each of you. What next? What next with the report that has come up? what next? We have discussed many things, but there are issues of soft adaptation limit, hard adaptation. It's a lot of issues are going around. So what next? What do you see as a scientist going from here? Let's start with Aditi, and then the final word, and then come around. Aditi.
Very briefly, I also wanted to say that let's not give these responsibilities to Panchayat without the required resources. So that's, I think, an important point. But coming back to the report and what next, our chapter, but for that matter, the entire report shows that adaptations, effectiveness of adaptation is already pretty limited because we are only doing incremental adaptation. But what is even more serious, that the adaptation space, effectiveness of adaptation at a higher level of global warming beyond 1.5 to 2 degree actually comes down drastically. So basically, in a warmer world, we are actually unable to even adapt. So adaptation and mitigation have to go hand in hand. These have to go equally well, because unless we are able to keep within 1.5 degree, a lot of the adaptation that we are talking about will just fail to have any impact. And so I think that's important, very important. And we have to do it quick. And even I mean, it's not as if only the historical emitters have to mitigate. Right. I mean, everybody has to mitigate. I think that's why, and for mitigation also, you would need finance, you would need technology transfer. So let's not argue for a right to pollute. I think that's becoming increasingly a difficult position to take, that because we haven't, because we haven't polluted in the past, we now have a right to pollute. I think that's an untenable position, and we really need to rethink that. Unless we mitigate, we are the ones who lose the most.
You know? Absolutely. Dr. Champ is saying the window is getting closer and shorter, and there's no door. So.
Yeah, I think for me, what I take away from the report, which actually has not found its way into a lot of the media coverage, is that we show that there are feasible adaptation options. So there is a list of options that we know are possible. Many of them are already being implemented in India, but also across South Asia. So we have a list of things that are possible. As Aditi mentioned, of course, how effective they are will reduce over time. So
no, I really would like to intervene you. It's a very important point you are mentioning, that there are adaptation modes which are being done, the good adaptation, so to say. Absolutely. But my question is, what is the ratio in the whole mix of it? Yes. What is the proportion of this so-called good adaptations?
Yeah, so I mean, off the top of my head, I don't have the number, but that is where this idea of maladaptation comes, right? So while there's a lot of possible adaptation or feasible adaptation, a lot of it is being implemented, but then a lot of it has maladaptive consequences, or what we mean by that is unintended consequences. You start off with a good intention, you adapt, but then it's increasing people's risk. And a classic example of that, I think we go on talking about it, is sea walls. So you build certain structures to keep flood water out, to avoid seawater coming in, but you're destroying your mangrove ecosystems. You're destroying the livelihoods of coastal fisher people, for example. So we have these examples, we know them. So instead of learning, I mean, what's not happening is we're not learning from them and then having what we call hybrid solutions, where you've got infrastructure, you've got nature, you've got other kinds of solutions.
So basically you're all coming down to the point that the more and more coordination. Roxy.
Yeah, I just want to also add not only coordination, I think it's learning from past failure. And that I think we know that even from the development sector, it's not about climate change, just practice, like having systems where we learn from past failure and move from this project-based approach to a more systemic approach is what is the need of the hour.
Right. But Roxy, these learnings will have to be there. But now it's all about survival. We can't talk about, I think the Bangladesh Delta Plan has been talked at length in this particular report. But what is going to happen in Sundarban in 2025? What is going to happen in 2030? So I think this short-term survival is extremely important. And I think I was hearing some of you saying that this decade is very important. This 2020 to 2030 decade, because whether you are actually going to put up those adaptation modes, you are creating those institutions. So very quickly, first Roxy and then Anil Prakash, to know that what you feel about it.
Well, I was charged up to talk something else.
Yes, sure. Why not? Very quick.
So one of the key important thing about this latest report, WG2 report, is that we need to have political will the political will, and this has to come out at all levels that we talked about today, whether it's panchayat to district, to state, to national level, we need, and on a global level as well, we need to have that political will. Now, when we started, we said that politicians and governments are, I mean, especially in India, we don't have a, we don't say climate change is not happening. They all are agreeing climate change is happening. But then what is stopping us from climate change adaptation? It's because it's not a priority. It's not a priority in our electoral polls. It should be one of the key agendas locally. So for example, if you are a coastal city having a lot of floods, cyclones, or sea level is rising, this should definitely be a poll agenda. This should, I mean, there should be a political will to work on that. So if we can have that political will, we might surely work towards that better future that you're talking about, like by 2025, 2030, we could have that scenario where we are better adapted. And also one more thing that I want to talk about based on the same thing. We often, especially politicians, blame on climate change when something happens. Okay, and this prevents them from taking action against exploiting land, some direct human interventions like land use, land changes, which aggravate these kind of extreme weather events, which leads to landslides and flash flooding, river encroachment. All these things are happening because these politicians are blaming climate change very often.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I just add one thing on the political will, please?
I have to go to Dr. Prakash. Very quickly, Chandra Singh would like to mention something.
Just on the political will, I think we tend to absolve ourselves of responsibility. We as voters have to vote for environmental issues and
that's a larger discussion.
We have to ask for that.
I am very clear about having seen this.
Sorry, climate change is not only an environmental issue. Climate change is no longer just an environmental issue. Today, I saw an editorial by a very powerful advocate saying calling climate change an environmental issue. True, it's an environmental issue, but it's increasingly a livelihood issue. It's an issue of life and death.
It's a survival issue.
The moment we frame it as an environmental issue, people kind of say, "Oh, it's an issue of the rich. I have nothing to do with it." But it's an issue of, it's a livelihood issue.
Right.
Yeah.
But having said that, let Dr. Prakash, I think Roxy was just mentioning about the poll and the poll agenda. I was looking at the poll agendas in the ongoing UP election. In fact, I spoke to all the spokespersons across all the political parties, be it BJP or SP or Congress, and because I found nowhere anything. I found that Uttar Pradesh being one of the states which are having maximum number of air polluting cities, not only in India, but in the world. If you look at the kind of package, it's the biggest one. But there's nothing in the poll agenda anywhere. And when I ask somebody, I don't name the party, you say, no, in any way we are doing it. So what's the point in saying the poll agenda, poll manifesto? So that's the kind of mindset. I always feel that investing for environment gives you long-term dividends, which politicians are not quite.
You should write about it. You should write about it.
Investing against environment gives you short-term dividend.
Jayanta, you should write about your survey and the response from these politicians. That's important.
I have already written about it. I'll share the link with you. So very quickly, Dr. Prakash.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let me just tell you. I think I agree with I agree with everyone.
Yes, the horn.
So, see, the writing is on the wall that and scientists have done their job. 3,700 pages of research has been put in by 270 scientists who are working very closely. If you take the entire number of scientists, about 1,000 scientists have worked all together in this report. So I don't think there's enough information. Lack is not there. What is lacking is the political wisdom to take this forward. And I always say this, and I think I agree with the Roxy, Chandni, Aditi, and Sanjay that this part is very important. This connectivity between the science and the policy is very, very important. And next 15 years is very crucial for all of us. Sitting in South Asia and for the humanities, because we are already reaching the planetary boundaries of adaptation. So this is act now, act politically and take this forward. That's what.
Sanjay, makes the responsibility of civil society even greater, because the window is closing at just Dr. Prakash saying that 15 years. That's nothing. So we have been just coming out of COVID. We know how the whole world kind of was restricted in COVID, how the finance has gone down and all that. With this premises, with this background, and with the kind of data, very clearly the scientists have done their job. I agree with that. They have put it up, and really, again, hats off to them, the way that the language they use, the sentences, extremely important. Sanjay, as a civil society advocate and somebody who's been pushing these agendas, what do you feel that really, how the whole thing should go about? Very quickly, this is the last point, and then I'll wind up.
Concluding remark. Okay. No, I think thank you IPCC for strengthening CSO's hands, because we have been talking about this phenomena. We have been talking about need to phase out now, in fact, yesterday, and we have been talking about energy transition that do not repeat the mistake of earlier energy system, which was more centralized. It has to be a mix of decentralized and centralized options also. So, and CSOs are already practicing or starting to practice some of the ideas on ground to showcase to the government, look, this is how it will work. So certainly we'll continue for effective implementation. We will also continue ensure holding government accountable. Substa, this time Substa is going to be there in June in Bonn, and then after that, hopefully General Assembly also. Stockholm 50+ is coming, and that's another platform where COVID is one stream, but then climate change or healthy planet is also another thing. And so these are the platforms where we will certainly, and more important is civil societies need to act as a peer pressure within their own countries also to make sure that governments are accountable, and they, rather than they wait for
the government,
rather than they wait for
is very important
to come from outside, they need to, start earmarking finances on their own also. You have to save your house. No one is come with
exactly. No one else is coming to save your house.
Yeah.
I think extremely important discussion. I had to extend it for 15 minutes because it's such an important discussion. Please take it from me. I've been doing this program for more than a year now, with more than over 60 episodes. This is definitely one of the major episodes, and I will try my best, and I request all of you to circulate it, because you guys have been wonderful, the way you have expressed, all of you, the points and the kind of I won't say panic, but actual threat perception, and also the solution. When Dr. Anjal Prakash is talking about the Ministry on Climate Change, he may not be actually meaning the ministry, actually meaning it. Please give it the due importance. You guys all are agreeing that the state level, district level, this is not happening. Dr. Chandni was talking about how the state action plans are really not there. Sanjay was also talking about the few states are doing, but the situation has come to a pass when government has to pass it. Government has to take that call that all states have to do the climate action plan within coming 3 months. All districts have to report it within 2 months. Unless you take this kind of a coordinated action from top to down, it is very difficult. Already it's difficult days, nothing not difficult, but I think more difficult days. Thank you all. Wonderful discussion. 2 direct pointers for me. One is the country, you have to save your house. So no point only saying the historical responsibility, what Aditi mentioned, what US has done 20 years back or 10 years back. That's important for the argument in the United Nations. But when you're trying to save your country, do it yourself. And second is link your top to bottom. People down there to regional, to state, to top. Absolutely, these are the 2 takeaways and learning lessons from me. Thank you, everybody. We'll keep on discussing. I think unless you people come on and talk on the public domain, of it, the people like all of you, Anjal, Prakash, Roxy Kaul, Chandni Singh, Aditi Mukherjee, Sanjay is anyway talking. We have been all talking. Unless you guys are talking and saying this is important, that takes a different sense. With that, I have to conclude. I don't want to conclude. I have already exceeded 15 minutes, but this is somewhere down the line I have to conclude. Thank you for everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jayanta. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful session and discussion.
Thank you.
Birds are allowed to roam.
I think Representative future.
সবাইকে কবিতা পাঠ ডেকে ভালো লাগে
What it pays for
শহীদ মিনার
we heard places to go in the city. But I play hockey.
having a good
So what we're supposed to do is really